Hey, this is Mike from the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today we're looking at a big one. This is Pendragon, The Fall of Roman Britain. There's another game in the Coin series from GMT. I covered Cuba Libre earlier this year. And this series has a bunch of entries in it now, and theoretically they're all about counterinsurgencies, but here the designer has applied the basic system to much more of a kind of typical war scenario. This game is set in 5th century Britain. I've got the board turned here because it is so dang big, and trust me, the names you'll be reading aren't super important anyway, but when I try to get zoom in and when we start playing the game, I'll try to get a vertical view for it. But the forces you've got arrayed here, you have the red pieces that are the dukes. These are basically the remnants of the Roman Empire. I mean, it's still alive and well, but the strongest Roman influence here, they're these really powerful cavalry forces. They have these red forts, and they're tacitly allied with their frenemies, to borrow what Liz Davidson said in her review. They're frenemies with the Ciuitates, which are the blue pieces, and those are kind of like the landed lords of Britain. So those two sides together make up the British side. And in the scenario I'm playing, which is not the shortest scenario, but also not the full 6 epoch scenario, this is a 4 epoch scenario, they are still allied, but they can break up and become kind of individual factions. So as a solo player, I'm going to be controlling both of them at first, but as things develop, they could split up. We'll see how that goes. Opposing our two Britain factions are two barbarian factions, and they don't have almost any presence on the board. This is sort of an intermediary scenario, but they still haven't done that well yet. So you've got the black pieces that are the Saxon invaders from like the Germanic tribes, and you'll see they've only got a couple of war bands, these two little squares in this province. And then you've got the Scotti, which represent both the Scottish and Pictish forces, and then also invaders from Ireland. And they've got just one little foothold of a settlement over here in the west of Britain. At the moment, basically everything else is controlled by the Ciuitates and the Dukes, the blue and the red. So I'm going to go through some basics of setup and also how to play the game. If you're familiar with the Coin series or just want to skip right to the playthrough and learn as I play along, you can check the timestamps in the video information. So there are 4 scenarios in the rulebook. 2 of them are only 2 epochs long, and they're kind of like at the beginning and end of the game when the Dukes and Ciuitates are together and when they've split up and fragmented. Then you've got a full campaign where you play through everything all the way to the end, and I'm picking the 4 epoch kind of middle campaign where you're sort of near where they're going to split up. The back of the rulebook has all of the complicated placements for all the units and forts and strongholds for the basic scenario, which is the easiest one to start with, and also for the full 6 epoch scenario. But for the scenario I've set up here, the harder they fall, you'll see they go through a whole bunch of stuff. They say how long it is, they tell you how to set up the event deck, we'll get to that in a second, how many resources each faction starts with. And then they literally go through every single region and tell you what's going on in there. So let's zoom in on one region and kind of show you what these things are about. All right, so here we've got a zoomed in picture of some regions on the map. And you'll see they each have a name for the region. They also each have 2 spots for strongholds to be constructed. And all of the factions have one type of stronghold except for the blue Ciuitates. They have both towns, which are light blue, and hill forts that are dark blue. Factions may also have troops in a region. There is no stacking limit, so you could have like 20 of these guys in there. Dukes only have their cavalry, which are their red squares. Ciuitates, again, have a light blue and a dark blue. The dark blue are the comitates, and they have to be brought in through event cards. We aren't going to have any of those. Right now we just have the light blue militia, which are super weak. And for barbarians, they just have basic war bands and these little settlements that don't do very well. A key concept in the game is population and control. You'll see that each region has a population value, generally between 1 to 3. These can be affected by player actions and by events, but they have a starting value on the board. The faction that controls a region is the one that has at least one stronghold there, so you can't control a region just with cubes, just with troops. But they can't just have a stronghold, they also have to have more pieces than all other forces there combined. So if I had 1 Scotti warband opposing these Ciuitates, they would still have control. But if I had 2, yes, they have a stronghold, but it's 2 to 2, so no one would have control here. But even if I added 3 and they now had a majority, they would not have control because they don't have a stronghold. If they built one of their settlements on this little site here, then they would control the province or the region. And for now, while the Kiwatates and the Dukes are friends, they'll share all this stuff. So red and blue won't compete. They'll basically combine their stuff to see who controls a region. But if the game reaches fragmentation when they stop being friends, then they'll be fighting over territory just like everybody else. Final thing to note on the map are these little cubes. These are called prosperity cubes. And a region can only have as many in their bottom and top row as their population. So if this lowered its population to 1, that would be the max they would have. And having them on the board basically shows that Britain is in a healthy economic state, and the Dukes like that. That's part of the Reds' winning condition, to have a lot of prosperity on the board. But it's also the thing that's going to attract raiding barbarian hordes. So you'll see the green and black, the Scotty and the Saxon opponents, will be coming for my prosperity and basically carrying it off as loot, which will help them get to winning the game. Now, each faction also has these available boxes. This is the Saxon one. You see they've got a ton of warbands and settlements not on the board yet. And the barbarian factions also have these sort of triangular pieces called raiders. They don't affect control, so they won't take over control of the space, even if they kind of mass there. But their big thing is they can just show up almost anywhere. You'll see the opponents doing that a lot. And they love to carry off prosperity and destroy my settlements and strongholds, so yeah, they're nasty guys. The scenario guide also tells you where to set each of the factions' starting resource counters, and also these other counters that track the Duke's prestige, which they get from winning battles, basically, and is key to their victory. And also the Kiwatates' wealth. They're trying to squirrel away some money for themselves and for Britain independence, and that's pretty important to whether the military or the civilians have dominance in the government. But the big part of setup we haven't talked about yet is the event cards that drive the gameplay. Some scenarios like this one will tell you to remove several cards, so I've already done that. And they'll also, if they aren't one of the basic scenarios, tell you to start with some cards in effect or in play. In this case, the Scotty faction has already played their pivotal event. Each faction has one really powerful event they can play once per game. We're just going to mark this as in effect. We don't care about all the other text. The key thing is the Scotties cannot raid from one of the 4 oceans on the board. You'll see that when we get into raiding. So that's going to limit their options quite a bit. But besides seeing which cards are going to be in play, you're going to build the event deck. And what you do is you see how many epochs you're playing. In this case, I'm doing a 4 epoch game. And you build that many piles of event cards, each with 12 cards. You take the epoch cards indicated by the scenario you're playing. In this case, we're going to take 1 out of the 2 early epoch cards that are left from those not already played, and all 3 of the late scenario cards. And for each of them, we're going to shuffle it in with the bottom 4 cards of their given deck. And then the early Epoch 1 will go on top, and the rest will go in any order on the bottom, and we'll have a little set deck with epochs showing up every once in a while. You also give the factions, in this case except for the Scotty, their pivotal event. I'm just going to keep them nearby, because the AI will play its one based on its AI chart at a specific time, and mine aren't even available yet because they require us not to have Roman rule, and right now we do. And you get the game fully ready by flipping the top event card, and we got Camelot right off the bat. And then you also flip the top card on the deck to show what's coming up next. It's going to be a key part of the strategy. And with that, you're ready to play. Now, for the basics of play of Pendragon, I'm going to go through some of the core concepts, but then I'm going to show the actual actions and details of them, including the AI, as I play, because there's way too much to explain in a short intro video. So the core element controlling gameplay are the event cards. Again, 1 is active and 1 is on deck at a time. Each event card has icons for the 4 factions in the game going up the top in different orders. And this is the order each action could be eligible to play with this event card. So here, the Kiwatates, the blue faction, could go first, and then the Dukes, the Roman cavalry, could go second, the Saxons third, and the Scotty fourth. But only 2 factions will act on a given card. So if, for example, the Kiwatates and the Dukes both took a turn, the Saxons and the Scotty would be out of luck. When the first faction is eligible, they can choose to pass and get some resources, basically wait for the next card, or they can pick one of these 3 options. They can execute the event on the card. In this case, their entire turn would be used to gain the benefit, and they can pick either one, but generally speaking, the unshaded one is good for the Romans and the Kiwatates, the Britons in general, and the shaded one is good for the barbarians. They can instead do a command with a feat, and each faction has 4 basic commands they can execute, although a lot of them are shared among factions, and 4 different feats that will be paired with different commands. So if you trade, for example, you can rule or invite as the Kiwatates. And then finally, they can choose to do a command with no feat. Now, the choice they make will have a major impact on the second faction because their choices will become more limited. If the first faction executes the event, the second faction can do a full command with a feat, just like this option for the first faction. If the first faction does a command with a feat, the second faction can do the event for themselves, or they can do a limited command. That means no feat and only in one space, so if you're going to do stuff all over the board, you can only do it in a single area. And finally, if the first faction does a command with no feat, they completely deny the second faction the chance to do the event. They can only do a limited action, but again, any faction can pass for some resources and give the option of being second faction to somebody else. Factions that act will be ineligible for the next event card. So you'll see kind of this give and take as you look at what the next event card coming up is and how important it is for you to deny your opponent doing something and execute stuff for yourself. As you kind of go along, that's how the game sort of plays. Now while we're here, a few other key concepts that are tracked right here. First, we've got this Imperium track, and in this scenario we're starting on Roman rule with civilian dominance. Basically, that means that Britain is still pretty healthy, that the Roman Empire is still doing okay, their influence is still exerted all the way over here. And the civilian or military dominance shows whether the dukes or the Ciuitates are kind of in control. Now, even though I'm controlling both factions, don't forget that it could split later if they reach this bottom thing called fragmentation. And since the Ciuitates can only win while civilians are dominant, and the dukes can only win while the military is dominant, basically until fragmentation, or unless I survive all 4 epochs, I cannot win because both my factions have to win at the same time. And how does that checking for winning work? Whenever we go through those 12 or so cards in the events deck and get to one of those epoch cards we seeded in, we go to an epoch round. We have to pay all our federati. We'll show you them in a second. We check how the Imperium is doing and whether this track is going to change. And then we see if a faction has reached their win condition. But for now, the dukes win if the country has a ton of prosperity overall, and they have a lot of prestige from winning battles. So they're looking to keep the money around and also win fights. All the Ciuitates care about for now is whether they have the most Britain control over almost the entire island. They don't want the barbarians to get footholds. And while Roman rule is still active, the Scotti and Saxons primarily care about getting their settlements just on the map, and also having a bunch of renown, their resource pool, basically. But the Saxons can also win by settling and controlling a lot of population, having control of more than 10 population, whereas the Scotti don't really care about that. They're not trying to settle in Britain, they're just trying to win a lot of renown for their raids and get some settlements on the map. A few other key concepts before we start. The Romans have laid down this big system of roads that goes basically across the entire country. And while spaces with roads are controlled, both the Ciuitates and the dukes can move across them really, really quickly. They have a major mobility advantage. But as the Imperium track goes down and the Empire goes away, eventually they'll have to pay to maintain the roads, and they could eventually go away, and then everyone can just move to adjacent regions. They lose all that quick movement for the rest of the game. Also, there are 4 oceans bordering Britain. So you can see 3 of them a little bit here. We've got Hibernicus to the west, Britannicus to the south, Germanicus to the east, and up to the north where the Scotti are, Septentrionalis. You don't have to worry too much about that, but the key thing is the Saxons will be raiding from Britannicus and Germanicus, and Duke's forts, the red settlements or strongholds bordering those oceans, will help to stop the Saxons from raiding in. They'll just destroy some of their ships as they come in. And to show that, you have these little tokens that say those oceans are patrolled. The oceans where the Scotties are coming from to the west and the north are not patrolled. But remember, the only event card, this pivotal event that was played before the game started, the only one that's still in play, is the Barbarian Conspiracy. And this means that the Scotti cannot raid from the Northern Sea. They can only come from Hibernicus. Another quick important concept is the idea that the dukes and the Ciuitates often hired these barbarians to also help defend their lands. So you see a big example of that, all of these black Saxon pieces with blue federati tokens on top of them. That means that for now, they are totally allied with the Ciuitates, they can move them around and fight with them. But at the end of every epoch, they will have to pay these guys, and if they can't, they will rebel and just destroy these lands, and of course really help out the Saxon player. Additionally, there are many events that will mess around with these guys, so it is a double-edged sword to use them. Finally, there are battles in Pendragon, and they have their own set of rules. They're fairly complicated, but to summarize, if someone like some raiders come into an enemy place and then do a battle action, or a raid action can include a battle, they'll often have a chance to roll to ambush the other side, or to evade the other side and cancel the combat entirely. If they don't do that, there will be a field battle where they kill each other. That's all deterministic, apart from the roll to maybe get an ambush or an evasion. And the defenders can run into their strongholds, and then they can try to assault the strongholds and destroy them entirely, which is often really tough unless you have a massive manpower advantage. If they don't assault, they can siege and just starve out the people. But again, like the different commands, I'll explain it better in the playthrough when we get to it, so don't worry about all the details right now. Alright, so that's some of the basics on how the game and the system works. Let's get to the playthrough and see it in action. Alright, so a couple of quick notes as I start playing. Number one, I'm probably only going to show 1 or 2 epochs instead of the full 4. This is a long game. My 2 epoch games usually take 2 to 3 hours, so I don't think you want to sit through the entire big thing. You'll get a taste for the game with just 1 or 2 epochs. And secondly, I did poll our Patreon members. They're the ones who voted for me to be the civilized forces here, the Britons, and not the barbarians. So that's what we're going to see today. But you can play on either side as a solo player, so I could be controlling both barbarian factions now, and the AI would be doing the British people. So with that said, this isn't the intro scenario where you have Britain in this totally pristine condition. Our main flashpoints, and I'm kind of showing the south of the island to show them, are over here, the Saxons have gotten a foothold, and over here, the Scotti have gotten a foothold. So I would love to chase those guys out, because if they can settle, it brings them closer to victory, and they can raid in to the interior, which is usually less well defended, if I let them stay there. And remember, for the Kiwatates, the blue faction, I want to get control of the island, so having uncontrolled population or barbarian controlled is bad for me. And for the Dukes, I want to protect the prosperity cubes that the barbarians will try to rob, and I want to win battles and get prestige for myself. So let's look at our first event. We'll be doing this a lot. The one on the right is the active one. This is coming up. So we can see with the order, I'm going to have the option to have both my factions act with Camelot. And Camelot is a pretty sweet event, so I'm almost certainly going to activate that. It says I get to add 3 Comitates to Kiwatates available. Basically, I've got this big crew of much better fighters than my basic light blue militia, but I haven't trained them into existence yet, so until I play cards like Camelot, I can't use them. But then the big one is Hill Forts have an escalate defense of 1 instead of half. That basically means all my dark blue strongholds will be much easier to defend because of the upgraded defense the Camelot card gives me. And this little yellow not symbol here means this will stay in play for the rest of the game, so it seems dumb not to use this and have a great bonus for the entire rest of the blue player's play. Now looking at the next card, unfortunately both the barbarians will have the chance to go first, and they have a vicious event that's going to let the Scotti just put down some more people on my soil immediately. So I hate letting them get away with that, but I think I have to have both my factions go with Camelot and then just deal with it. So we'll have the Kiwatates as the first eligible faction do the event, and don't forget that means the Dukes can do a full command with feats. They're not really losing anything for going second. All the Kiwatates do is play this card. They do get 3 Comitates to their available, so they'll have stronger forces to field, but that's their entire turn. They just do the event and they're done. Now I'll summarize the 4 Dukes' main commands, so you kind of know what their options are. First, they can train, which will let them put militia from the Kiwatates and also their own cavalry in spaces with forts, which are all these little red strongholds. And currently they have 8 cavalry in the available box, so they are very undermanned at the beginning of this scenario, so I think it makes sense to possibly train. Their next command, one you'll see a lot, is an intercept command. It's basically a move and an attack combined, but it only goes to where raiders are, those little triangular guys who just show up and steal all their prosperity. And since none of them are on the map, that's off the table. Next command is March. It lets you move people around, possibly to try to take control or attack the enemy. I do want to attack the Scotti and the Saxons, but since I haven't gotten enough cavalry yet, that doesn't make much sense. And their final basic command is to battle, where they're sharing spaces with another force. I could battle the Kiwatates, even though I'm controlling both of them, but that would be kind of stupid, so we're going to train. So I can choose any space with fort or friendly control, so any of the blue-controlled spaces. I pay 3 resources per space where I want to raise up troops, and 2 for prosperity, adding prosperity to the space. So for the 3 resources, I get 1 cavalry per fort I select. And then also, if there's a blue Kiwatate stronghold there, I also get to put up to 2 militia there. Then if I want to, I can pay 2 resources, and I didn't mention this, but for most of the game, the Dukes will be using the blue Kiwatates resources. They can get their own, but that's usually only at the end when they're fragmented. I can select up to 2 regions and pay 2 resources each if they have a fort or cavalry and friendly control to add prosperity that are equal to population, so I can refill those golden cubes. And yes, that'll bring the Dukes closer to victory since they want prosperity on the map, but it'll also make it more appetizing for the barbarians to come in. Now it's very expensive, but I've got 8 forts on the map, so let's just go crazy and put out all our forces right off the bat. So we had 1 red troop, 1 cavalry to every space with a fort. The Kiwatates have 4 militia available, so we can additionally pick 2 spaces that have a fort and one of the blue strongholds to place in. And we're going to go to places that have a lot of prosperity to protect them. So let's put 2 more here, and also 2 over here. Now that was 8 spaces of training, so this will be a massive drain on the Britain economy. They had 32 resources, now they're going to be down to 8. So even though I could pay some more to add some prosperity, I think that's asking a bit too much, so we'll stop there. Now don't forget they also can do a feat. They can do build, invite, or requisition. To explain the 4 basic Roman feats, build lets them put down new forts, and also sometimes new Kiwatate strongholds. Invite is how we get the Federati, so we bring on some black or green pieces for free, but we have to pay them later, and they can rebel against us. Requisition lets me steal resources from the Kiwatates to add to the Duke's own resources. Don't really want to do that yet while I'm against myself. And Retaliate we can't use right now, but it lets the Romans destroy some barbarian settlements if they attack them. So I'm going to go ahead and invite since it's free. And I have 2 spaces with just Roman units and not a lot of prosperity to defend. But Parisi's next to the ocean that the Scotti can't raid from anymore, and the better patrolled ocean, Germanicus over here. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to pick Scotti instead of Saxon, because the Saxon already have a lot of Federati, and I don't want any of them to get too much benefit if something bad happens. So you have to give them a settlement first, so there they go, they're going to take the other site there. And then if it's Saxon, you get 3 warbands, if it's Scotti, you get 2, so a little bit less. And you just mark them with one of these little tokens, in this case it's red for the Duke, so I control them, not the Kiwatates. Alright, so that was 1 event card. It's time to see what nastiness the Barbarians have in store. So Barbarians becomes active, and we see Dogs and Wolves. This is a really nasty one for Barbarians, so they might actually not both go this turn. One of them might pass, we'll see. Now I'm going to get into the AI, so let's talk about some things on the event cards that help with resolving it. You'll see that the Scotti and both of the Britain factions have kind of a shield behind this one. That means this is a really good event for them to play, so they're usually going to resolve it when it's the AI. The sword going through here means that the Saxons will sometimes think of resolving it. It'll depend on their actions and kind of their priorities. But before we look at that, let's see some non-player flowcharts. Alright. So the Scotti are first on the Barbarian card, and I'm going to walk you through kind of their overall thought process. First, they see if they have a ton of raiders on the board with plunder. And if they do, they want to do what's called a return action. That basically gets all of the gold cubes back to them as resources. And remember, they want renown. They want resources to win the game. If they can't do that, and clearly here they won't because they don't have any raiders, next they're going to see if it's a shield event. And it is. They're going to play it. But if it's not, and the next card has a shield event, they're going to pass because they want to get that shield event on the next card. Then they see if they have any warbands that could crush somebody's stronghold. Here they don't have any ready to attack. Then they see if they have a ton of warbands already on the map. They're not going to march around to attack people because they're not really about that. They'd rather raid. And speaking of raiding, here's going to be the main action we'll do, except not this turn because of the event. But they are often going to send a ton of raiders. It's the most complicated one. I'll show you how a whole one is decided later. If they don't raid, they'll try to play the event unless it's totally ineffective, which is like this little angel wing symbol behind, kind of like you saw the shield and the sword. And if they still won't raid and they don't want to do the event, then they'll finally march. They kind of have 2 chances to march. The Saxons are super similar, except they're a little bit more likely to march because, remember, they want to actually settle Britain, whereas the Scotti basically just want to get resources. But like their raid priorities, a lot of that stuff is very similar, so I'll show it when it comes up. So again, they don't have any raiders to return. They're going to skip that step, go down to here. It is an effective event with a shield for them, so the Scotti are going to do the Shaded Hex, Pirate Haven. They're going to place one of their settlements and 2 warbands at a vacant hill fort site. The sites are labeled as towns or hill forts, either next to the western Hibernicus Ocean or the northern one. So if we look, we've got one here, 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 and here, and here, and here's the last one. Now, for some things, the AI has like really strict ways they decide what they want to do, but for a lot of events like this, they just want to do the full effect of the event. They aren't very smart with it. So we'll just randomly determine which hill fort site they want to go to. Now, if you have 6 or less, you can just roll a d6 and figure it out. But here they don't, so we'll roll a random region and just kind of progress along the list until we find one with a vacant hill fort that applies to the event. And in this case, they rolled Parisi, so they're immediately going to put down a hill fort there, and also 2 warbands. And they and the Dukes are now tied in that region, so no one has control. Which does mean the Kiwatates, who want control of the population, are going to lose 2 points from their British control objective because there's 2 population in Parisi. So in a word, that sucked. Next up are the Saxon AI, and since the Scotti did an event, they can do a full command with feat. But actually, one of the balancing mechanics for the AI, because again, they're sometimes dumb, is that they always do a full command and feat instead of a limited command in one space. You can change that for different difficulty settings, but that's how we're going to play today. Now again, they start very similar. They check if they have raiders on the map they want to bring back. They don't. They see if they can do an event. They can't because the Scotty already did it. But now they see, ooh, are they first or second with a shield event on an upcoming card? And they are indeed first or second, so they really want to play this event. So they're actually going to pass and get one renown, one resource for themselves. So to show you how eligibility works, the Scotty are ineligible since they took an action. The Saxons stay eligible because they only passed, and we come back. So the three of us will be the ones fighting over acting this next round. But it's not really a fight because the Saxons are almost certainly going to do the event they passed for. And then I'll have to decide which I want to act first, red or blue, because they're going to go first, whichever of them goes before the Scotty next round. And my god, is this a devastating card to pull. So it says flip up to 2 patrolled, no patrol markers now on oceans. And since it's the Saxons doing it, they're going to flip Britannicus and Germanicus to unpatrolled, which means now we have no patrols for the entire island. We're going to get no subtraction from raids coming in to destroy us. Now, on the positive side, during upkeep, we're going to pay half as much to keep our forts around because they aren't guarding the ocean anymore. So, yay. And this, again, is a permanent event, so unless we get another event that'll change the oceans, that's how it's going to be. Now, I can choose whether the Dukes or the Kiwatates act next since they were both left on the card. We're really low on resources, so I think I want to show you one of the Kiwatates' actions to fix that before the Dukes try to regulate some people and smash some heads. So to summarize the 4 commands for the Kiwatates, they have Muster, which puts down their units and can also put down new strongholds. March lets them move people around. Battle lets them fight. Those are the same for basically everybody. But trade is what we're going to do today. Basically, we get 1 resource for every town on the board. Remember, towns are the light blue stronghold, so I have a lot of them. Then I'll have the chance to pick 2 spaces, pay 1 resource, and add prosperity equal to population, basically the same as what the Dukes could have done last round. A nice thing for a lot of these elements is that they have these trackers to show you, so I can see at a glance that I have 11 towns out, so I'm getting 11 resources. And I think I will spend 2 to add some prosperity back. Now I have to do it in locations with towns, and I want to do it where they're pretty well defended. So let's do it in these 2 places where we added some cavalry. They should be pretty safe. Now with a trade, we can rule or invite. But to summarize the 4, invite is the same as the Dukes. We can put down some of those barbarian forces. Don't want to do that, I don't think. Pillage lets them steal prosperity from spaces. That's usually better at fragmentation. Reinforce is when they're battling. They can raise up a militia from nearby spaces and fight better. And finally, rule. They can mess with the Dukes, or they can repopulate the land if the population has been knocked down, usually by the Saxons. But their main thing is they can spend up to 2 resources 3 times, so up to 6 total, to increase wealth by 1 to 3. And wealth, again, is this separate tracker. It lets them buy things when they run out of resources. They can also get their better units out with it. So sure, let's spend 4 resources and increase wealth by 2. Alright, so we get to the next card, and the Dukes and the Scotty are eligible, so we will go before them. They want to play an event to take away 20 of the British resources, which would bankrupt us. We could play an event that would last for a while but cost us a lot, that would cancel some of the worst, absolute worst events, these tribal wars, but we might not draw those, so I don't know if it's worth it. What I could do instead, of course, is do a command with no feat added. And remember, that means that the second faction can't play the event, so the Scotty would just have to raid or something like that. Although, yikes, look, the next card has the Saxons eligible first, and they will be. And it is a tribal war that would really mess us up. But it's not a shield event, so the AI is more likely to raid than use it, so I think we're safe. Now, I do have kind of a funny option to take advantage of the AI. The Scotty are almost definitely going to do the event for minus 20 resources. But I'm at 13. If I can take a command that spends basically all of those, like takes us down to 2 or 1, the Scotty will still play the event as long as it has some effect. So I'll get them to kind of waste their turn and still use the resources, although, again, we'll be broke. So what I'm thinking is I can march in some Dukes into these places that are taken over. And then I can build some new forts, get the 2 that I'm missing, build some more structures for the Kiwatates, and really shore up our defenses. So how marching works for the Dukes is I pay 2 resources for every space people want to move from. And as long as they move along the roads through controlled spaces, so like Parisi would break up the road there, they can move as far as they want until they move off the road into a space. And I can bring along the blue units as long as they're always with a red unit, although militia are always slow. They can only move 1. They don't like to go too far from their home. So places I'd love to get into are, of course, those three. So I know I'm leaving it undefended, but let's spend 2 to move these guys in. And let's spend 2 to send this guy, and that should be enough. They are not as strong in fighting as we are. Ooh, now that we have my Federati to help defend here, let's go through here and pick up... Actually, you know what? Let's bring one of my Federati as well, and pick up 1 militia here, and I'll go in here. Or actually, let's leave the militia and bring both Federati, because I don't want to spend that much to bring them along. So it leaves me with 7 resources, so I can build in 2 of these places. By the way, we regain control here, since we have most now. So let's spend 6 resources, leaving us with 1. And put a fort here and here, which will retake control in both spaces. And with that, at least for the moment, we've retaken the entire island. Now the Scotti are next, they can still do the event. And they don't have anybody to return, and it is a shielded event, so even though they're only taking away 1 resource, they're kind of dumb, they'll do it. Alright, the Saxons are up, and then the Kiwatates are eligible. And again, this is a pretty devastating tribal war, but hopefully the Saxons won't pick it. And coming up for next turn, an event that the Dukes might want. We train 2 cavalry per train action instead of 1, although, since we have all our cavalry out on the board right now, I don't know if that's more important than just fighting. So to show you the Saxons again, I'll do this a few more times. They don't have people to return, no raiders on the board. They don't have an effective event. They're not first or second with an effective event on the next card. Now they do have the chance to try to march and settle to put down some more people. But they don't have a settlement here to actually recruit more people, and they won't march when there's only 2 people in a space, so they're just going to stay there. Next, they'll check if an attack would remove an enemy's last unit or assault them. Now, Saxons like being in the fens, which is like what these swampy regions to the east of the island are. So they do have a chance of killing all of my units, but not before I run into the hill fort, and once I'm in there, they will not do very well, so they're not going to attack. So here's where our chance comes in. If they roll a 1, 2, 3, or 4, they're going to try to raid with their raiders. If they roll a 5 or 6, they're going to do the event. Oh boy. No. Okay, so they're just raiding, which is also terrible, but not necessarily as bad as that event. So raiding is by far the most complicated, but let's talk about the basics. When Saxons raid, they can come in next to Germanicus or next to Britannicus, so basically in the east and south. And they can pay 2 resources to place 3d4 raiders into a space. Or they can pay 1 resource to place 1d4 raiders. You know what their preference is going to be usually. Normally the raiders would be decreased by the number of Duke's forts next to the ocean, but they're not patrolled anymore, so no. And to show you the key things, they're going to try to get 3d4 raiders at enemy-controlled spaces with 2+ prosperity. It's almost everywhere right now. First they try to have the least subtraction of raiders from patrols, but there aren't any. And then they're going to roll on a 1 to 4. They're going to care about whether there's fewer troops than population, so kind of under-defended places. And on a 5 to 6, they're going to go to Fens, which is their home territory, and they fight better there. And they got a 4, so that means they're looking for those least defended areas. So over here, we've got 2 troops and 1 population, so that's kind of a +1. They probably won't attack there. +1 here. +2 here, geez. +1 here. So here's a 0. We can mark that. They're probably going to attack there. +2. +1. They don't count their own people in there. +0, another likely candidate. Going up here to Parisi, plus way too many. So since we didn't find 3 that have even population and troops, we're going to randomly determine between the ones that have 1 more troop than population. We'll mark those with grays right now. We got here, 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 and that's it. So it's pretty clear like this. You can just make it a random die roll. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, they're going to fight their own Federati, which is maybe good for us, because if those guys die, they can't betray us. Now they're going to steal prosperity equal to population. That's how it usually works. But then they'll only battle where their assault will definitely destroy the stronghold. And there's a whole chart to help you with that. And their preferred feat, they're definitely going to do it here, is called a Ravage. They're going to take double the prosperity they would normally take, and they have a chance of destroying the population in the place. So basically making our control of the land worse. We could randomly determine which one they do first, but since they have a ton of raiders, it doesn't really matter here. So 3d4 there. They've got, oh my god, big roll. That is 9. So 9 raiders show up here. Usually they take 2 of the prosperity, again equal to the population, but since they're ravaging, they get it all. And each unit can only carry 1 prosperity. So here we've got 4 of the 9 raiders carrying that. With Ravage, they now roll a d6. On a 4, 5, 6, they decrease the population. They do. So there's now a 1 population, which is going to decrease British control. But speaking of control, remember raiders are not counted for the number of pieces in a space for control, so the British still rule here. Now, if they attack, my guys are certainly going to run into their strongholds. And then they want to see if they could destroy the strongholds. We'll see we have 9 raiders, and we'll see how many defenders they could beat. So in a fort, they could beat 0 to 1 defender. In a town, they could beat 0 to 2 defenders. So they are definitely going to be destroying some stuff here. So I'd rather keep my guys alive. Forts have enough capacity for 2 units, towns for 4, but we already saw they can destroy a town with 2 defenders, so we're both going to run away into the fort before we even have a field battle. Because in a field battle, we'd be wiped out. So the AI will attack the town, and how that works is you see what the Escalade defense, so here it's half, and Raiders basically count as half units, so they can be killed by a half attack. So each defender will do a half attack, and in this case you got 2 free garrison units in the town. So we're going to kill 2 of the Raiders off the bat as they attack. By the way, I will say after a Ravage action like they did to decrease the population, we do get the chance to freely attack them, but that would be pretty foolish here. Now once they survive the Escalade and get inside the walls, everyone is just 1 for 1, so there's 2 defenders in here, so they kill 2 of the Raiders, but then the town is destroyed because there's still some of them left. Now whenever a town is destroyed, the attackers get 3 prosperity from sacking it, but in this case only 1 can fit on the Raiders, so all 5 of them have prosperity. Now if they lost fewer pieces than us, they get 1 free renown, but they lost 4 and we only lost the 1 town, so that doesn't happen. But every time a fort is destroyed or a town while blue and red are friendly, the Dukes lose 2 prestige. They shouldn't be losing battles. So between the prosperity loss and the town destroyed, that was a terrible turn for the Dukes. But we aren't done, let's do some more raids. Alright, so right here. 7. Now they actually won't Ravage, won't get them any extra loot, because here they're getting 2 anyway. So they're not going to try to decrease the population here. But they will try to take the town and probably succeed. And lucky for us, if both the militia run into the town, you'll see that 7 Raiders is not enough to take a town if it has 2 defenders. Here they can take it with 0 to 1. These little columns are if they had used the feat Surprise, which they didn't choose. They like Ravaging more, then they would have had a chance to destroy it no matter what. So they won't attack there, they'll just hang out. And finally, fighting their own brothers. 9 again, darn it. So once again, they're not going to Ravage, but they will get 2 prosperity. And settlements, the barbarian structures are super easy to destroy. So yeah, they're basically definitely going to attack it. Now only 2 of the defenders can fit in anything except a town. So this last guy has to have a field battle with them. If they were in the fens, they could try to ambush each other and attack first. But here they're just in plain, so they can't do any of that. And the cube troops get to strike first. They kill 2 raiders for each hit, and it takes 2 raiders to kill them. But clearly they have more than enough for that. And storming the structure, it has a half value, so they're going to kill 2 just as they try to get over the walls. And then it's all even once they're in, so 2 defenders take out 2 raiders, and the structure is destroyed. For destroying a non-town structure, you get a bonus of 2 prosperity, but they can again only hold 1 of it. And that's 2 more British control gone. So yeah, pretty rough turn overall there. So now the Cubitates remain eligible. And don't forget, we left ourselves with 0 resources, so it kind of makes sense for them to trade and get resources back. But the problem is, since the Saxons did a command and feat, we can only do a limited command. So that would only work in 1 space and get us 2 resources from the 2 towns there. But hey, this event that I was so afraid of, the top effect puts Saxon Federati in one of 2 locations. And one of them is, funnily enough, literally the place that was just taken. So I can just replace the guys we lost. Yeah, so there are barbarians aplenty. Let's just retake our location. And that does indeed get us our control back. Alright, now the next 2 cards, the red Dukes and the green Scotty, are eligible. Now we have this event that lets us train cavalry more quickly, but I'm not sure I want that, although it would last for the rest of the game. Although whatever I do, I can't let the Scotty get the event because they will take 5 of my cavalry from the board and kill them, which would be terrible. The next one gives me the chance to get more prestige, but that's not a vital thing, so I think the Dukes will act. But we have no resources, so what can we do? Well, happily, fighting is free, and we have a few places to do it in. Remember, we set these up last time, so let's have a battle here. Let's have a battle here. And let's have a battle here. Actually, let's not have a battle here. I forgot. They're in the fens, their home territory, so they have a very good chance of ambushing us and killing everyone. And same thing here is why I'm not fighting these raiders, although I could try to. So this 2 locations of battle will make it featless so that the Scotty can't do that devastating event afterwards. Now both these battles are going to play out pretty similarly, but I'll talk through them. So over here, since it's a plain space, the Scotty have no advantage. They like the hills just like the Saxons like the fens, so they will be a little bit better over here. So if they fought in a field battle, the cavalry would attack first. The red troops are the strongest in the game, so they'd be wiped out immediately. And there are no intrinsic defenses in the barbarian strongholds, so it would just fall. So the best they can hope for is to run inside and use the half attack from scaling the walls to hit us. But when Dukes are attacking a stronghold, their first hit when they're storming the walls can take 2 full hits. So half of 2 guys is only 1 hit, so it won't even kill anybody. But it's still their best bet to run into the walls, so they don't hurt us at all storming the walls, but then once it actually gets into the combat, it is 2 and 2. But since we remain, we do destroy their stronghold. Now, unless Dukes do the Retaliate feat, which we weren't adding on here to avoid the event, they don't get any prosperity cubes. They don't like to loot things. But because the Scotty lost 3 pieces and they lost 2, they do get a prestige for the battle. And they also get a prestige for destroying the stronghold. Now, one final note, the warbands that were destroyed go right back to available, but the Dukes have a lot of trouble training their elite soldiers, so their 2 guys go to the casualty box, and they might not come back at the end of the turn, depending on what state we're in. Now over here, basically the same thing happens, but because there's only 1 guy, it's going to go even worse for them. I'll again take no hits storming the walls, and then in the melee, I can kill my Federati instead of my cavalry, which of course makes sense. I still lost fewer pieces, so I'm going to get 2 prestige again, 1 for losing fewer pieces in the fight, 1 for destroying a stronghold. And while the cavalry won't take prosperity for destroying the stronghold, the Federati will, and that actually means I don't have to pay him at the end of the next epoch, so it's kind of a nice thing to use them in battle, even if they don't die. Alright, so the Scotty are next. They can't do the event since I did not do a feat with that command, so they can just do what would be a limited command for a human, but a full command for them. They're not going to return, they don't have an effective event, they don't have a special event on the next card. I wiped out all their warbands, so they're just going to raid. Scotty raids are identical to Saxon except for a few things. First, they can do 2d4 or 1d4 raids, so they raid fewer people than the Saxons. But it costs them less. The 2d4 costs 1 renown, the 1d4 is free. And they can also do 4 locations instead of 3 like the Saxons. But remember, with their pivotal event already played before the game started, they can only come from Hibernicus, not the other sea. They also roll a 1d6 to see their priority. On a 1 through 4, they do that many of the bigger raids, so they're doing 3 big raids here. And their first priority will be to raid next to existing Scotty pieces, but I wiped them all out. And then they're going to do the same thing, highest difference in population and troops there. So let's see, they definitely want to go to the place I left undefended. Now, barbarians can, with a surprise feat, go on a deep raid, which actually goes 1 inward past the coast. But when they do that, we can attack them before they get a chance to take the plunder and raid. So we only do that if there's a higher priority, and with this region right here having only 1 defender for 2 population, that's probably not going to happen. So there's only 1 under-defended place, but there's a lot of +1s. Basically every other region around here. So they'll randomize 1 out of 4, but let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. And they picked all the way down here. Now they have 1 raid left, because remember they can do 4, but this is going to be one of the free ones with only 1d4 raiders. And now their priorities change. They want the most prosperity possible, and then they want to raid into hills if possible. So all of these places have 1 prosperity. And 1, 2, 3, they're all hills, so it'll just be a random roll. So their 4th raid is there. Now because they didn't want a deep raid, they're going to do a feat called Ransom. They get a 1d6 roll against each place they're attacking, and if they get a 4, 5, or 6, they basically steal one of their resources and take it for their own. But here's the thing, the Dukes and the Kiwatates still have no resources, and they can't steal well, so they're actually going to do no feat and just raid. Alright, so let's do the highest priority first. We got 6 guys. Now, unlike the Saxons, they cannot ravage. They're just going to take 2 prosperity, equal to the population. And they're definitely going to attack, because they know they can at least destroy that Federati one. I'm not even going to defend it. So I'll run back to my fort. They destroy that for free, because again, it has no defenders and doesn't have anybody intrinsically in it. So that's 2 more prosperity for them. But lucky for us, 6 raiders cannot quite take a fort with 1 defender. If they'd had even 1 more raider, they would have. So we dodged a bit of a bullet there, leaving that place so undefended. And by the way, that cost them 3 resources, I should have said, for the 3 bigger raids. Alright, next big one over here. 5. You only get 1 plunder. Now, Camelot is boosting this hill fort, so every single defender in there, including the one that comes with it free, will destroy 2 raiders when they scale the wall. So these guys would get totally wrecked. They're not attacking. Okay, so down here we'll have the same situation unless they roll really high. 6, that won't cut it. So they again just steal 1 prosperity, not too bad. And finally, the small raid. 2 guys. And they're just taking the prosperity that used to be theirs when they had a settlement there. And that's it. A lot of raiding going on. So the blue and black factions are eligible, and we get first shot here. But as you can see, the Saxons are almost certainly going to pass in order to do this. Although, maybe not. They have a ton of raiders on the board, and that's the one thing they will skip a good event for, to pull back their raiders from danger. So let's see, what could we do for an event? Till Epic, Dukes add 2... Oh, that's right, this is the one about Prestige. But the Epoch could be coming soon, and these ones go away. The ones with the little sail, they're only temporary. What we do need pretty badly are some resources. So let's do that trade action again. We've got only 10 towns now, so we'll only get 10 resources from it. And then even though I hate to spend the money, we've lost a lot of prosperity, and that's going to determine whether we stay with the Roman Empire. So I'm going to spend 2 of those resources to boost back up some places. So let's see, over here with the town, we can get 2 more prosperity back. And I guess over here we can get 1, unfortunately not a lot. Now the Saxons have this little winged symbol, which means they're never going to do this event, so they'll definitely just do a command. And they return their raiders when they have 15 plus on the map. They do when they have greater than 2d6 plunder. No matter what I rolled, they probably would. So they're definitely going to do a return action. And they'll try to settle and get some of their war bands and even a settlement on the map for free. Get some foothold on the ground. So return's a simple, straightforward command. You just take all the prosperity on any Saxon units. So that is 10. They're up to 23 renown. And then all of their raiders just go away. They just got their plunder and they leave. Now with their settle feat, they can pick one location and they have a 50-50 chance for every raider run away to put a warband there. And not only that, but they get to count raiders in adjacent spaces, and they prefer fens. They're going to try to settle here with these 3 raiders benefiting them from there. So these guys just go away for no effect. So we've got 10 raiders total. We're going to roll d6s every 4, 5, 6. Gives them a warband. So that is 3, 4, 5. Exactly half. So yikes, a devastating force of Saxons just appeared here. And they can immediately take away 2 of their warbands to place a settlement, which they want to do because, again, that's one of their victory conditions. And they now have control here. They've got 2 control and we've lost 2. So yuck, another nice turn for the Saxons. All right, now we've got the Dukes and the Scotti eligible. Rising Seas is up next. This is actually a nice one for us. It'll let us intercept a bunch of raiders. Remember, that's the Duke's action to kind of move and attack. And do it for free. It wouldn't cost any resources to do. We could take care of all those Scotti raiders out there. It would also reduce Saxon raids by -2, even with all the seas unpatrolled. So that would be nice, although it's only until the epoch ends, and that's going to be soon. We've gone through a bunch of cards. And look, the next one is Saxon again. Oh, it could let me set that sea. Oh, wait, that's the one sea nobody's coming from, so who cares if that's patrolled or not? Although the alternative is the Saxons to get the ability to raid from that sea, so, oh my gosh, this is going to be a mess. Now, we do have to look at something new and be aware of it, because the Saxons now meet their pivotal event requirements. It says play of Saxon renown is at least 15. It's all the way up to 23 after that return. There will be a revolt. Remove federati markers from all Saxons in up to 3 regions. In each such region, remove 1 prosperity and battle with shield wall against Britons. So, yeah, can I tell you when they play that, it's going to be a sad day for these 2 regions. Now, they can play their pivotal event if they're eligible. The Saxons aren't right now. And it basically interrupts the normal card, so they do this, and then we get back to the regular event card with them not being eligible anymore. So we're not going to worry about it for this card coming up, but they'll probably do this very soon. Alright, so I do think the Dukes are going to do this Rising Seas event. A free intercept, not paying any resources, is absurdly good, so they definitely want to do that. So the basic idea of an intercept is I can move just Dukes units, so no blue units, although blue units at the space can fight with them. And they can move along the roads and end up at any space that still has Britain control, so you can't go if the barbarians destroyed all the structures there. And then they also get to fight those raiders for free, so it's a nice little combo package. So let's see, we've got a lot of Scotti raiders, and luckily our only lost control is all down here, so we can use the roads freely. Now normally we pay 2 for every space the cavalry were coming from, but thanks to the event it's free, which is beautiful. So I'll bring a cavalry from up here. Again, they can all move freely as long as we have control the whole time, and they go along the roads and only move off at the end. I'm getting one from where you can't see over here, another one from where you can see over here, places that have a lot of defenders already. Now these guys can easily kill these raiders by themselves. Down here, they'll be able to help the militia, so 1 guy should be enough. Over here, same thing. Let's see, over here, I think we'll actually need 1 more cavalry to kill them all. Alright, so I'll leave 1 place up there a little undefended, and we'll get 3 cavalry in here. So the AI raiders basically never want to do open battle when they're outnumbered and going to be killed. But they have a chance to evade combat by rolling a d6. In the hills, they have a 50% chance, a 4, 5, or 6, and the combat doesn't happen at all. In plains, they can only do it on a 6, so pretty good chance those guys will die. Because the cavalry attacks before them and kills 2 of them for every 1 of us, and militia kill 1. Oh wait, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4. So one of these guys will survive. And down here, 2 of these guys will survive. All right, so let's leave places even worse defended. And build up more guys here. Hopefully they don't evade. So all these spaces are basically evade or die. Let's see how it goes. All right, here they need a 6. They got it. Darn it. That was my best chance. So no combat there. Over here. They do fail. So we wipe them out. And when you kill enemies carrying plunder, your main option is to take half of it rounded down on your units. I can't do that with 1. Or you can put 1 of it back on the region so it can make the prosperity a little better. And also, since cavalry were involved in a fight, the more enemy units died, they get 1 prestige. Okay, over here, another chance to get them. Nope, they evade. Remember, it's a 4, 5, 6 on their home terrain, hills here. And then down here, the big group. Darn it. 3 evasions. That was not great. And with that, the guys will almost certainly run away. Let's see, 2 on clear. No, they're all in hills. 15 plus. We've got 6, 8. Oh, 14. Okay, so they won't run away for that. And now we roll 2d6, and if their plunder is greater, they stay. They have 4 or 5, only 6 plunder. They might not run away. Yep, 11, they are staying. Oh, and crud, they don't have any warbands to attack. They don't have enough raiders to raid, so they're going to try to play the event. Now, this is a sword one, mainly because it benefits the Saxons, so we're going to check this big event chart and see if they'll do it. And let's see, 38 Rising Seas. Play if the Saxon is a non-player. You jerks! So they're doing the event. I didn't even consider that as a possibility. Okay, until epoch, Saxon raids place +2 extra raiders in each target space, and they get a free full raid right now, with +2 raiders in every space. Gosh darn it. So Viscotti basically said, hey Saxons, you're doing better than us. You got this, right? So this is a free raid, so they get to do the big one, 3d4 guys with +2 in 3 spaces for free. Great. Roll for their preference. So again, they're going to the easiest space, fewest troops for the population. So I left Parisi undefended. I did not expect this. And then they really want that juicy prize there. And we've got 2 more at even. Here it's 3 troops for 3. And here it's 2 troops for 2. They will ignore places that don't have British control because they want to take it, so they're not going to raid into their own place, obviously. Now, they will only ravage if either the red or blue player are close to winning, and sadly the blue player still is because they have a lot of control, even though red is destroyed right now. So they will be ravaging. Here, they'll take all that plunder. Wonderful. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. They're not going there. There's nothing to actually take. So they're actually looking at +1s with 2 or more prosperity. So not there, but there. Not there. Not enough prosperity. Okay, so I guess that's it. But still gonna ravage. Yeah, there and there. I'm gonna ravage all these places. Yikes. Alright, so we'll start at Parisi. Oh, pretty terrible roll. That's good. I mean, it's 5 + 2 is 7. That's still not great. Alright, and they ravage, so they take away all the prosperity. I could hit them if I wanted to, but yeah, good luck. Sadly, 7 can take a fort with 1 defender. So there's 1 automatic defender in there. They each kill 2 raiders. So that'll mean 4 die scaling the wall. 2 more die killing the units. So there's only 1 left, but we still lose control there. So the 1 cavalry goes to casualties. We'll lose the fort. That's going to cost us 2 prestige. However, we do get 1 prestige for fighting and killing more of them, so yay for a tragic stand. That was a rough one. I don't know if it's going to get much better. Okay, over here. Oh my gosh, 10 + 2, 12. They are ravaging, so they're getting 6 prosperity. We'll just have like kind of a pile there. Oh, you know, I forgot to roll to see if we lost population in Parisi. No. Do we lose population here? Yes. Something I forgot to say for the last population loss. Every time that happens, you get a little refugee token in the available forces for the Kiwatates. And they can, in future actions, settle those people. It costs a bunch of money and increase the population somewhere else. So with that population reduction out of the way, let's get to the battle. If we all run into the town, they shouldn't attack it after they destroy the fort. So the fort, they'll lose 2 guys storming the walls, another guy to the defender. That does get them 2 more plunder, and the dukes will lose 2 more prestige for a fort being lost. But then they're just shy of being strong enough to attack the town, so yay. And they are not done. Another fun target. So 7 + 2 is 9. And they're ravaging, so they'll get all 4. Let's see if they decrease the population. Oh, they do. So we've got way too many refugees to possibly settle. Once again, I can pick which one is destroyed. I think we need the towns for the resources. But they will attack the place with fewer defenders. I feel like I can afford to put 1 in the hill fort. I remember Camelot is going to make them do more damage. So both the defender in here and that guy will kill 2 of them each. And they'll lose 2 more in defeating the hill fort. So instead of getting extra plunder, they've actually lost 1. Well, that means that militia is dead, so is the hill fort. But at least the town and a few defenders are alive. And don't forget, all of that was the Scotty turn, because now the Saxons are eligible, and they have the best card first. Gosh, they got another good card coming out second. Now, they will not do their event to interrupt things if either this card or the next card have a special event for them, which both of them do, so they're not going to use it for now. And let's be real here, clearly they're going to return, I would assume. Oh my gosh, they've got 8, 11, 12 plunder, unless I roll double 6s. Yes, oh, I came close, but their preference is definitely to return and settle. That's terrible, because gosh, they're going to get so many people here and probably take over control. It's 12 more resources for them. That puts them to, gosh, 35. There's a very real chance that the Saxons will just win at the end of this epoch. Now, they actually don't have a tiebreaker between which place they go to. They say the place they're sure to add the most control, but this place has more guys, even though it's more population, so it's kind of hard to tell. So let's do it random. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so they are going for the one with more population, which is bad for me if they get it. So it's 12 raiders total. Again, we're rolling d6s. A 4, 5, 6 means they get a warband. So 3 times. That's 3. That's 4, 5. And 6, 7. Slightly above average. And they will, of course, take away 2 to put down a settlement. Now, they could also add more population, but that would take them below control. So they're going to stop there, and they have stolen another place. So yikes, yikes, yikes. They have 2, 4 control, and once they play their event, they might have way too much. All right, now it's the Kiwatati's actions, and we have to do something about these guys. Now, the thing is, since they just did a command and feat, I can either do the event, which would just make the ocean patrolled, who cares, or I can only do a limited command, which means it can only affect 1 space. So I think what I'm going to do is muster next door, try to get a bunch of people, and then, I don't know, maybe I can have the dukes come in and try to attack and bring my guys with them. So it's 2 to muster into space. I'll choose here. And I can muster 1 per town or hill fort plus population, so that's 4. That's all the guys I have available. It'll cost me 3 wealth additionally to have my stronger Comitates troops come out, but now they're actually able to stand toe-to-toe with those guys. Well, that's it for their turn. Unless we can get something going, they might just run away with it. Oh man, still no epoch, but it's got to be soon. Oh man, so since there is no shielded event on this next card, that means they will be doing their big event next turn. So the dukes have got to like march in or do something. We don't have time to deal with these raiders, unfortunately. Here's my thought. If I bring down some cavalry down to here, I can pick up all these federati as I go, so even if they play the event, they'll only capture this place. They'll just make their forces here even stronger. Let's see, I only have 6 resources, although I could dip into wealth to pay for it. And I've still got control going along the roads to get to where I need to go. That's good. Alright, so let's take, I guess, 2 of these guys. That's 1 origin space. They'll pick up these guys along the way. That's a 2nd origin space. And they'll go over here, pick up all the federati. That's a 3rd origin space, so we're at 0 resources now. I don't know if that'll be enough. If all these guys betray us, yeah, it'll be 8 to 8. So hey, what the heck? We'll also bring another militia, and we'll just see how it goes. Let's see. If the Scotty do the event, Nona is the end of the round where you have to pay all your federatis. We'd have to do it for Saxon, so they'd flip. But it's worth they do it that way, not getting paid. They do stuff immediately, so I guess I don't want them to do that. But I do think I have to invite some federati for the dukes, because they don't have enough defenses. Let's get some over here where I just abandoned. And that does give a federati home for this guy to run back to, because otherwise he would just leave. We'll have to get the money very soon to pay them, or dip into the Kiwatate's wealth, otherwise they'll just betray me anyway. Alright, the Scotty are going to roll again to see if their plunder is enough to return. 7. They have 4, 5, 6, so no. Oh darn, it does say they're going to play an event, so maybe I shouldn't have done the feat. Actually, I do have to make a choice. Do I want to pay them or not? And I think not, because they're going to switch anyway. And I think he'll still play the event just to switch that stronghold, which will stay since there's no troops there anyway. And all they do is plunder, but there's no plunder to take. So they're just going to gain control here. But I have regained control here. I should have already flipped that. Man, that is a lot of dudes. All right, they're going to play their card. Oh! Or the epoch will end, and maybe that's good for me. Although, man, now I could have kept that, but I guess I don't have to pay them now. So the cards get flipped, so the epoch happens now, and that'll be the first card of the next one. And they have a whole cheat sheet. You just kind of run through it. So first we have to pay for every Federati troop. If we don't pay them, they will ravage and do bad stuff. Again, this stronghold is just hanging out, so I guess the Saxons will probably play their card in a second, which is good for us. Well, there's a pretty good chance they already won, but let's go through things and see. So the only Federati soldiers left is right here, and those two there. He already has plunder, so we need 2 for him. We'll go ahead and dip into the Kiwatate wealth to pay them. Oh no, I just checked the rules. The dukes cannot use wealth in place of resources. Only blue can do that, so we can't pay our guys. So that guy stays loyal. These guys rebel and plunder. And these guys get that, and we don't have control here anymore. Oh, Lord. Now, the Scotty, even though the Federati's on my side, he gets the resources for the one plunder that guy was holding. Now we do hoarding. Kiwatates can take resources and turn them into wealth. We don't have any. Now we check control and prosperity plus prestige. Britain control is all the way down to 27, so within the margin. And prosperity and prestige is only 48. So we are shifting down to autonomy. We are not working with Rome that much anymore. But it's not bad enough to go to fragmentation where my guys actually turn against each other. Okay, and if a shift occurred, we divide prestige and wealth by 2, round up. So they both went down to 6, and we are now in autonomy. Let's see, we're civilian dominated. Okay, and let's see, wealth minus prestige is less than or equal to 5, where it's actually 0 because they're tied, so we shift back to military domination. All right, now we're going to see if anyone has met their victory condition. So the Dukes, 60 total prosperity and prestige. They're at 48. No. The Scotty, renown exceeds 45. It's only at 13 because they spent all their money on the Saxons, so no. Okay, the Saxon, the control exceeds 10. No, they only have 4. Oh, but here, crud. Yeah, I think they're going to win. Saxon renown exceeds 30. Yeah, it's at 35. And there are at least 4 Saxon settlements on the map. And sadly, that does include Federati, so the Saxons have won after one epoch. I didn't have to even stop the game short. So yeah, that was pretty devastating, and I did not get time to do an attack and try to get rid of one of those. So that was it. Pendragon on normal difficulty with clearly some pretty bad luck in the Scotty helping the Saxon to just decimate me. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, that was 1 epoch, and the shortest game is 2, so it is a bit of a long haul if you want to play, but it could be worth it for you. Good gaming, and we'll see you at the next stop.